Welcome to today's NTAC session entitled Minds Matter, Strategies for Supporting Students with Mental Health Challenges in Schools. We are so happy you're taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping items to go over, and we'd love to learn more from you in the chat box. If you could just take a minute to enter your organization and role and where you're located so we know who's here today. As part of our session, we must provide you with this disclaimer. This presentation was prepared by NTAC under a cooperative agreement from SAMHSA. While the event is supported by SAMHSA, the contents are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of SAMHSA, HHS, or the US government. While we hope there are not any security issues that happen today, in the event that any may occur, the session will immediately end and you will be notified by email how to rejoin the session. Thank you again for attending one of our NTAC sessions listed here of all our incredible national partners that have come together to utilize their expertise and their subject matter knowledge to help inform the field by creating products, resources, and sessions like this one to enhance the behavioral and mental health fields. As a center, our vision is that all children, youth, and families living with and impacted by mental health challenges will have access to the resources and opportunities they need to thrive in a comprehensive and equitable system of care. We serve a wide cross-sector audience, including everyone from state leaders to providers, to school workforce, infant and early childhood providers, community-based partners, peer supervisors, family partners, youth partners, and much more. Our services range from individual consultation to more in-depth sessions like the one we are offering today, to peer learning exchanges and tools to help you. Our aim is to really create those outlets for communication, collaboration, and resource sharing among all of us. Please make sure to check out all of our resources and archived presentations on our website, or go to the Contact Us link there to request consultation or training. Before we get started, we want to address some commonly asked questions that come up during our sessions to let you know before we get started some of the answers to those questions. In the follow-up email for today's sessions, you will receive a certificate of completion, a link to the recording of this session, and a copy of the slide deck presentation that's being shown. You should have also received a copy of the slide deck in the reminder email that was sent earlier today, if you would like to access it for today's session. Also, after our sessions, we'll be sending out next week a copy of the notes that are taken and the resources that are provided during the session. All right, now that we made it through the housekeeping items, we want to welcome you again to today's session, Minds Matter, Strategies for Supporting Students with Mental Health Challenges in Schools. I'd like to introduce our presenters today, one of them being me, Olivia Hamra. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist at MedStar Georgetown University Hospital. I also work with the MedStar Center for Wellbeing in School Environments, WISE, where I see students in schools for psychiatry services and consultation with school staff.
Hi, my name is Ariel Brooks Porter. I am going to be your second presenter today. I am a special education coordinator and professional, and I work in a DC public charter school. I'm excited to be here to share some resources with you, to chat with you, to problem solve with you, and to dig into the work together.
All right, an agenda for our session today. We're going to start with actually, I think this is reversed. We're going to start with a mood check-in, and then we're going to do some introductions as in breakout rooms so you all can get to know each other a little bit better. We're going to talk about ADHD today. So we'll do a brief presentation about ADHD in schools, and then we'll talk about a case. So starting out, I just want to see where everyone's at today. So choose an emoji that you feel represents your mood today and type it in the chat. And we'll kind of see where everyone's at, how everyone's feeling. Silly.
I'm feeling just like you, Abra. Oh, Jennifer, real cool.
Ooh, Kristen.
Okay, so
Embarrassed.
hopefully at the end you're like, cheese. Okay, Maria.
Happy, calm faces, some silly faces. Okay, cool. Last week we went around and we all said our names and introduced ourselves and what we're hoping to get from the session. This week, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a breakout. We're gonna divide you all into pairs. And I have a question to think about if you want to answer this question or if you want to just introduce yourself to the other person in your breakout room, you can do that and chat for a little bit. Sometimes it's nice to reflect on how the week has been on a Friday and what we might be able to do next week that help next week feel good too. So my question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your work-life balance this week? And I'll have us.
All right, I will open up the breakout rooms now.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'm gonna jump into some rooms where people haven't joined yet.
Okay. How do you do that?
Hi, Blanca and Ursula. Are you not able to take part in the breakout rooms? You may have some tech issues or something going on.
Well, I was in the breakout room and then it brought me back here, so I'm not sure what happened.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me move you back then. Or
Okay.
actually, let's see. What you'll have to do then, looks like you are in room 3, so you'll have to go down to your bottom toolbar to your breakout
Okay.
room button and then click to join again, and it'll take you back in there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Ursula, let me know if you need any assistance.
Keep doing that.
Maria, same. If Maria and Jennifer, if you need any assistance getting back in.
I was in the breakout room. The person in the room with me left, so I left too.
Okay. Would you like me to put you in a different room?
No, I'm good, but thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Oh, and I just realized Maria said that they had to step out for 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And Ursula as well.
Yes. I think everyone else is in the room.
Looks
Do you
like.
have like a timer on it?
Hmm.
Do you have like a timer on it?
Yeah, I'm just watching the clock.
Oh, okay. And we're doing 3 minutes.
Yes.
How was y'all's work-life balance this week?
Mine was pretty terrible on the side of working too much.
Yeah.
I think the past couple weeks, end of March, April has been so busy lately, and I've been staying at work until like 7, which I don't normally do. I'm hoping that lifts in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
How about you?
Some days were better than others. I think with the more daylight makes me feel like I have a better work-life balance because I'm just able to do more things after the work hours. So like there's some days where I'm like, oh yeah, like did some chores and exercised, and then there's other days that it's like, where did the entire day go? Because yeah, this end of March going into April has been increasingly busy, it feels, for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. That is true. The sunlight makes a big difference.
Yeah, I love it. Like it's like light until like nearly 8 now. Like amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely makes you push yourself a little bit more to be done earlier to get out and enjoy the sunlight.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this weekend, at least where I'm in DC, it's supposed to be really nice. It's going to be like warm and sunny. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Yeah, we've been hitting probably 70 to 80 this week here.
Where are you?
Northern California.
Oh, okay. Nice.
But then it's supposed to drop down to 50 again this weekend. So at least we had a few nice days.
Okay. Okay. As people are coming back from the breakout rooms, I just want to ask again for whoever can to turn on their cameras, so that we can see everyone here. Today, and I hope that the breakout rooms went well. I got to learn a little bit about each other. Today we're going to talk about ADHD. It's something that comes up a lot in schools. It's a pretty common concern. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what I know as a psychiatrist, and then Ariel's going to share some really useful things that we can do to support these kids. If any questions come up while I'm talking, feel free to type in the chat. The other thing I want to ask you to do is, as I go through these slides, I want you to think about a student who you work with or you know in your school that has these symptoms, and try to kind of follow along based on that student that you've got in mind. All right, so in order to be diagnosed with ADHD, you have to meet these criteria. So this is the DSM diagnosis. And I know it's a lot of words on this slide, but ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. There's only one name. It's not ADD or ADHD anymore. It's all ADHD. It all falls under that category. But there's 3 types. So if you have ADHD, you either have inattentive type, hyperactive type, or combined type. So the criteria are that over the last 6 months, at least 6 months, in more than one setting, so it can't be just in school or just at home. It has to be more than one setting, with some of the symptoms beginning before the age of 12. So it's something that has to start early on in the child's life, be going on chronically, and happening in more than one setting. You have to meet these criteria. So for inattentive type, you need more than 5 of this list of 9 symptoms. And for the hyperactive type, you would need more than 5 of the list of 9 symptoms on the right. And if you have combined type, it means you meet criteria for both the inattentive and the hyperactive type. So you would have 6 criteria of the inattentive and 6 of the hyperactive, and that would be combined type. And so these are things that I think a lot of kids meet criteria for, depending on their age. So the other really important thing to remember is it has to be like outside of what would be developmentally expected for the child. And the symptoms also have to cause a significant impairment in functioning. So like affecting their relationships, affecting their performance in school, affecting the way that they're able to do day-to-day tasks, like that's important too. Because like, for instance, any 5-year-old is going to have difficulty organizing tasks and activities, right? Like that's normal. So it has to be like outside of the realm of what we would expect developmentally. A couple stats about ADHD. About 10% of kids in the US are diagnosed with ADHD. Boys are twice as likely to be diagnosed with ADHD as girls. It doesn't mean that ADHD is necessarily more common in boys. A lot of times boys kind of turn up with the classic symptoms of like hyperactivity, whereas girls are more likely to have more of the inattentive symptoms. And so a lot of times they just go unnoticed for longer. 64% of children with ADHD have another psychiatric diagnosis, and 50% of kids with ADHD have a behavior or conduct problem. Up to 27% of adolescents with a substance use disorder have comorbid ADHD, so it's a risk factor for substance use. Teen drivers diagnosed with ADHD are more likely to be in a traffic accident, be issued traffic and moving violations, and engage in risky driving behaviors. So that's one thing why it's really important to treat ADHD, right? We want to prevent substance use disorders. We want to prevent accidents, those kinds of risky behaviors that can be really dangerous. Raising a child with ADHD costs about 5 times more than raising a child without ADHD. And approximately 50% of families with at least one child diagnosed with ADHD have at least one parent with the disorder. My rule is usually if a child has ADHD, I can pretty much assume that one of the parents does. It's very heritable. This is something important to think about for your students. Adolescent girls with ADHD are more likely to struggle with social difficulties and have a poor self-concept. Teen boys with ADHD are more likely to experience problems with attendance, their GPA, homework, and more. And at least 1 in 5 students with ADHD does not receive the needed school-based intervention services. Really quickly, I won't go too much into the neuroscience, but what ADHD, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. So it essentially means, or what we know about ADHD is that the prefrontal cortex, or the frontal lobe of the brain, is underdeveloped compared to kids the same age. So the frontal lobe does things like help with problem solving, memory, language, motivation, judgment, impulse control, social behavior, planning, decision-making, attention, ability to delay gratification, and time perception. So if you think about all of these things that the frontal lobe does and look back to that list of symptoms, criteria for ADHD, you can see how underdevelopment of this area of the brain can really impact functioning for a child. The brain does eventually catch up for most people with ADHD over time. So like this graph here shows the development of the brain in a child with ADHD versus a typically developing child. And you can just see the darker areas are like the thickness of the brain matter. And it's pretty developed by like 8, 9 in typically developing controls, whereas for ADHD, it just takes much longer. And so it kind of sets these kids behind. There are a lot of strengths for people who have ADHD, and I think that's really, really important to remember. Kids with ADHD, or people with ADHD in general, tend to be more creative, more curious, better at thinking outside the box, more willing to take risks, have strong conversational skills, they do have this ability to hyper focus on tasks that are enjoyable to them. And they actually tend to be really resilient. Studies show that kids with ADHD are more likely to be able to overcome obstacles or come back from disappointment compared to kids who don't have ADHD. The like gold standard screening tool for ADHD is a Vanderbilt scale. Parents and teachers fill them out. It's really helpful to show that, again, these symptoms are across multiple settings. So that's why we have parents and teachers. Kids are notoriously terrible at self-reporting their symptoms of ADHD. And so usually we don't ask for them to fill out any kind of self-report. They don't have the best insight. A quick overview of medications to treat ADHD. Most psychiatric conditions, we recommend therapy first or combination of therapy and medications. For ADHD, the evidence shows that stimulants work so well and so quickly that they should really be started right away if a child has a diagnosis of ADHD. And so we would usually start either an amphetamine derivative like Adderall or Vyvanse, or a methylphenidate derivative like Concerta, Ritalin, Focalin. These medications work in about 80 to 90% of kids with ADHD, have a really positive effect. They work almost right away, like within the first couple of days of starting the medication. And they work in a way where they can kind of be taken on like just school days. They can be taken every day. They can skip days if they feel like they don't need it a certain day. Like let's say they're on spring break or something, they can take a holiday from the medication. So kind of in and out of their system pretty quickly. In general, they're really safe medications and usually tolerated well. A couple of things to know is that the most common side effects are decreased appetite and interference with sleep. So those are things I'll always tell parents to look out for, but especially like during the school day, if a child is like not eating lunch, that's really important to know. The other important thing is that when the dose is too high, people might say like the child is like a zombie or like out of it. That means that's not typical. That's not what we would want for a child on a stimulant. It means the dose is too high. So we need to either decrease the dose or switch to something else. There's a group of people who respond really well to the amphetamine derivatives and a group of people who respond really well to the methylphenidate derivatives. And you don't really know. So you kind of just have to pick one and see what might work best. And then there's these non-stimulant medications for ADHD too. Strattera or atomoxetine. It works pretty well, not as well as stimulants. I think about 60% of people will respond to Strattera and have a good effect. That one, you have to take it really consistently every day, and you don't really see much of a difference until about a month into taking it. The other thing with Strattera is that it, what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. It comes with more side effects. So people might say they have like upset stomach, they have trouble sleeping or feel sleepy when they're taking it. Sometimes it can cause weight gain. It works better for attention, like inattention, than for impulsivity or hyperactivity. And there are studies that show specifically for kids who have ADHD and anxiety, that Strattera could be a good choice because it can help treat the anxiety too. And then guanfacine and clonidine are both medications that are often used for ADHD in kids. There's really good evidence for them in kids, and but they don't work for ADHD in adults. So you really only see that in kids, these medications used in kids. Specifically, they're very good for like the impulsivity, hyperactivity piece of ADHD. A lot of times they're given at night because they can help with sleep too. Especially clonidine, guanfacine, a lot of times it's given either at night or during the day because it's just less sedating. A lot of times the guanfacine or clonidine is used with a stimulant, and that combination can be really good too. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Aria.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and get started. It seems like my slide is a little cut off,
Sorry.
which, you know, isn't the best, but we will keep going. Maybe it was just me though. Maybe it's my computer. We'll go ahead and start with some of the things that we'll see in the classroom. So when it comes to ADHD in the classroom, can I have a show of hands? How many of us have a student we think about when we think of hyperactivity or like being fidgety in the classroom and things of that nature? You can put your hand up in the chat or like raise your hand. I just want to see. So I see a number of hands going up. Yes. So we experience that in school with students that we see. And it looks like lack of focus, impulsivity, trouble staying on task, struggling to listen or put effort into their work, fidgety, often fidgety, unable to regulate their body and often wanting attention. So a lot of attention seeking behaviors, rushing through the work, being chatty and easily distracted. Some of these things can be age appropriate. Some of them are things that elementary students might do, things of that nature, or it could just be symptoms of them having ADHD. As teachers, we have to be equipped, or educators, we have to be equipped with the tools and the knowledge necessary to support people who have ADHD, just in general. And Diana, I love that you brought that up, because these are things that we can do just in general. It doesn't have to be for a student. It could be for an adult, right? We just have to be able to understand the importance of the knowledge behind ADHD and how we can help other people. Sometimes in the classroom, it can look like jobs or non-contingent breaks, aggressive monitoring and consistent check-ins, repeating expectations, providing opportunities to have wiggle breaks or the use of fidget toys, giving checklists to preview work, pairing students with quieter children, intentional seating arrangements, and differentiated instruction. But in adults, some of the things that we can do is still have a consistent routine. Again, the clear expectations, and then just being able to provide the grace and the space to think things through, understanding the way in which they learn so that you can support them as they continue to grow. And again, clear is kind, being able to have that clarity and those opportunities to just support and communicate with them. Another thing that we can do for teachers is think about how we can implement some strategies inside of our classrooms to make learning more engaging for students who are fidgety, who often lack focus or are disengaged. We can go to the next slide. One of the things we can do as educators is just think about like educating ourselves. Though we are the educators in the space, we are still continuing to learn. We are still the student. So professional development, opportunities to learn more about executive functioning and those skills for our kids, for ourselves, for our family members. Having clear and consistent routines. Again, clear is kind. Being able to understand what the expectation is from the morning to the night. Sometimes that may look like a visual aid that's inside the classroom or a visual schedule. So we know this is what's happening in the morning, in the night, each step of the way. Sometimes it looks like teaching students to use different organization systems or using one yourself. I am a person who am consistent with using a to-do list. If I don't have a to-do list or a planner, my life is like in shambles. And so that's an organization system that helps me. But I know that everybody has their own tools that help support them. It could be a whiteboard that you have on your refrigerator that tells you the things that you need to get from the grocery store or the things you need to do that day. It also looks like providing, again, those non-contingent breaks. How can you like, okay, every day at 5 o'clock, I'm going to take a hard stop and have an hour to myself, or like every morning I'm going to wake up early so I can have this hour to myself. Providing yourself those opportunities to just be and be still in what it is that you need for yourself to be well, to like get your fidgets out, to wiggle. The same thing we do for kids, it's the same thing we can do for ourselves. And a lot of these strategies are things that I implement for myself because I can often lack focus or get in those same moments where I'm unable to stay engaged or focused. And so these things can happen and work for all of us. Other things for the classroom, though, are like implementing incentive plans to push student engagement, previewing lessons with students so they're aware of what they're about to learn, and that can help build their confidence in the content and push them to be engaged because they kind of already know what's about to happen. Positive praise, positive praise, positive praise. We as people just enjoy having positive praise, right? So providing that for students so that they are aware of, one, they're doing great things, but also the things that they're doing will continue to be praised, and it'll continue to push them to do and provide some of the desired behaviors inside the classroom environment. And then lastly, again, clear and concise expectations. I can't say enough that clear is kind. One of the tools that is super important for me in my practice that I use and I think could be helpful for others is the Universal Design for Learning guidelines. One thing that I know to be true is that everyone learns differently and everyone deserves access to high quality learning. And so despite learning differently, we have to understand that everybody still deserves access to high quality learning, to rigorous curriculum inside the school. And sometimes that looks like differentiating the work. And so one of the tools that I use is the Universal Design for Learning guidelines created by CASTS, which is shown here. Thank you, Dr. Hamra. There's 3 different guidelines that CASTS usually goes by. The first guideline is engagement, providing multiple means of engagement. And that is just providing the why for learning, providing an opportunity for students to tap in, get engaged and excited about the work they're about to do. Then it's the representation, the what students are going to learn, and then how they're going to learn it, that action and expression. And what I'm going to do is just give you guys a quick tour or online tour of the CAST website, as it's something super exciting to use. It's a pretty interactive website, and it just truly allows you to tap in and find different ways to engage students, a class, anyone. And so I want to share this with you guys. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Is it showing this? Okay, this might be the wrong. Let's see.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, so this is the Universal Design for Learning website. I'll drop this in the chat as well so everybody has access. But as I stated, there are the 3 different guidelines: engagement, representation, action, and expression. Now, something that's super important is it also breaks down the ways in which you can support a student. And so, for example, if I have a student who has a hard time with self-regulation, they just keep moving and fidgeting and they know they're about to do it, but they just don't know how to stop it. I can come here and say, okay, I know that's an engagement piece and we're working on self-regulation. When I click into self-regulation, it provides me a number of different options, a number of different strategies, skills, and tools that I can implement inside my classroom to support a specific child. So for example, I'm trying to promote expectation and beliefs that optimize motivation, or am I trying to facilitate some personal coping skills and strategies for kids to use to build that self-regulation? Or are they developing some self-assessment and reflection that will help them make some progress toward their goals. And so we could just click into one of those and it'll give us some information that we could use to support us inside the classroom. So an example is provide some differentiated models to manage frustration, seek external emotional support, and things of that nature. Then it'll bring us back to some more checkpoints. And so this tool is super helpful when it comes to trying to figure out how I could support students, not just students with ADHD. It could also just be that, hey, I know I'm going to teach a class. There's a number of students, they may have ADHD, they may not have ADHD, but I want to provide an opportunity to differentiate my lesson and meet everybody where they are. And so this tool is one that can help me say, hey, I have high learners here who have a hard time internalizing the work. So I may come down here and think about some executive functioning skills or some comprehension skills, right? And then I might think, hey, I also have some learners who are still trying to get some access. So let me think about this same lesson, but come up here and build off the representation to provide them that access to the lesson. So this is truly a tool that you can use for all learners, for all students that you support, not just students who have a disability. All right, so now we're about to jump into the next portion of today's session, and that's just us taking the next 10 minutes to unpack and discuss a case study.
Okay, let me go back to share. Or maybe, can you stop sharing?
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yes, so that was like quick, a lot of information. I'd like to ask everyone if you have a case in mind, a student who you work with or who you know about who struggles in school. It can be someone who you think has ADHD or it can be something else. This is for you. I would love for someone to come off mute and share a little bit about this student. No identifying information. Then we can kind of talk as a group and help walk through a case.
Olivia, I have one, but if somebody else has one, I will.
Kirsten just mute.
I have one too, but it can wait. It's nothing urgent.
No, let's share it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's a little guy who is he's in special education, and he let's see, he's 6 years old. He spends a lot of time outside of his regular general ed setting and a lot of times in a special ed setting, mostly because he hasn't mastered I'm trying to think of the best way to describe. He's very, very active. And I actually think that there's probably a bigger mental health piece beyond ADHD, because he comes into school very, very dysregulated, like kind of running around the classroom, falling down. He gets very visually distracted when he's walking down hallways. When he's working on his work and it starts getting difficult, he goes under his desk and hides. A lot of these behaviors have really improved with the team working really, really diligently with him, but it's still this week he came in very, very dysregulated the whole week. And so is there something else you'd like to know?
Do people here have questions about this kid? This is a really good case.
Okay.
I have a question. His home life, how would you say that he has a consistent routine at home?
No. Yeah, and we were able to get him in to see a developmental pediatrician. And then also my recommendation to his primary care provider was that they also, and to the mother, was to seek out some behavioral health supports. Because I think there's a lot going on for him.
How is his language ability?
His language ability is okay. I mean, he's 6. He's able to partially express himself, meaning that he'll say things like, "I'm scared," and we're not exactly sure what he means by that. I mean, I believe he is scared. He had a really kind of difficult first quarter at school because it wasn't a good teacher match within his gen ed setting, and so he's felt more safe since moving classrooms. I forget exactly what the testing results were, but cognitively, he's actually his cognitive skills are much higher than his performance. So he's got a lot, he understands a lot more than what he's able to sort of get across on paper or get across verbally.
What grade is he in?
Well,
He's in kindergarten.
Okay.
So he's trying to build his communication. Are there other interventions or tools that are being used to support him in building that communication, like a core board or like things like that?
Not so much for communication. There's lots of positive reinforcement built into his day. Lots of movement breaks are built into his day.
Mm-hmm.
I've started talking to the teachers a lot about self-regulation and sort of trying to work on getting him calm first before, like, even if he comes in first thing in the day, let's help him get calm. And even if we do, like, we did some jumping and then some quiet story time to kind of get reset his nervous system.
what is the classroom look like? So my son is extremely ADHD and was not medicated until later. I would have labeled him a typical boy from when I was a child, but school's not set up to accommodate him anymore. You know what I mean? Like, does he have a ball that he can sit on? Does he have a stand-up desk with a little foot thing? It's those little things. Like, it worries me that you're making him jump and then sit because you're hypering him up, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then wanting him to sit down. Like, it's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's
And
a
I
good
also
point.
think, based off of what you said, Abra, setting matters, right? The environment matters. So
Yeah.
if he's doing that inside the classroom, it's hard to differentiate when it's jump time from now I need to sit and focus time. So if you're like, I'm about to take him on one of those non-contingent breaks, you might say, okay, we're going to go outside, or I'm going to take you to the gym so you can jump, or blah, blah, blah. So then we know that when I'm back in the class, we're back in focus mode.
Yeah, yeah. And the jumping happens outside of the classroom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that's great. But yeah. Because actually one of the strategies we developed that hasn't seemed to work was having him be as a movement break in the classroom, using the scooter board to pick up little Pokemon pieces that he collects. And that did not work out well. So that's probably why. So it may be good to try that in the hallway. Like, he could, for his movement break, he could do that in the hallway.
And I wonder, does he know what time his breaks are? Like, is there a visual schedule handy? That might support him too, because even though it's happening every day, it'll provide him a sense of consistency and clarity. One thing that I noticed with some of our kids who have ADHD is that some of their ADHD and anxiety is because they don't know what's about to happen next.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm hyper, like, I don't know what's coming up next. And so that visual schedule just provides them like, okay, I see the clock says 12:49. So in 10 minutes, it's going to be 1, and I know my break's at 1. And so
Yeah.
there's some like sense of calmness because I know I'm gonna go on this break regardless at 1, so I can hold it down for the next 10 minutes.
That's a
I
great idea.
And I would also suggest some teachers need to, I don't know how his teachers are, but with my experience, it's not about us as a teacher, it's about the child. So is it gonna bother him to stand in the back of circle time? You know what I mean? It's those little things, it's the person-centered, approach to teaching is what he needs. What does he need? Has anybody asked him? How can we, he's 6, I have a 6-year-old, and they can speak and they can tell you, what is he afraid of? And he will tell you. And then, work with that. Some of it could be the anxiety of being afraid.
Yeah, I know Jennifer put in the chat that it's also important to think about traumas at home. If it seems like a chaotic environment at home, it's possible that the family just needs more support. And I think that's an excellent point. Trauma a lot of times looks like ADHD in school because kids might be triggered, and that can look like hyperactivity or impulsivity. Kids can be having a lot of trouble focusing because of whatever has been happening or whatever has happened in the past. So a lot of times that can look like ADHD. Often I kind of tease those two out by really looking at the psychoeducational testing that's done. A lot of times there's some pretty clear patterns that you can see in that with trauma versus ADHD. And then the other thing is just knowing the history, right?
Yeah.
And Diana also asked a really good question. What are this kid's strengths? What is he really good at? I know you said he has a pretty high level of cognitive functioning, or at least higher than what he's demonstrating in school.
Yeah.
What are some of his other strengths?
His other strength is that he's very, very sweet, and that, like most kids, he really wants to do well, and he's trying, so he's motivated. And I think that when he starts to act silly, it's because, it's probably because he doesn't have the language, and he's remorseful. He's very sad if if people talk to him, like his gen ed teacher is pretty harsh, and so he gets very hurt by her. So we're actually been trying to get him out of that classroom as much as possible, or when he's in there, he's got support from another adult.
The other thing I think is really important to think about, especially at this age, is when his birthday is. If he's a young 6 versus an older kindergartner, that year makes a huge difference. And like I was saying with the brain development, if he has ADHD and he's on the young end of his class, that's going to make it extremely difficult for him to keep up with his peers. And it's just something to keep in mind if you know that about him, and to know that over the years he will probably catch up. But also at this early age, like, it may even be worth thinking about keeping him in kindergarten for another year to develop if he's on the young end of his class.
Yeah. Somebody asked in the quote, I think in the chat, somebody asked about, does he have friends? He does. He does. And he is so precious. We did this a letter, kind of physically oriented or a physical motor letter writing activity, and his friends wanted to join him in it, and they were all doing it with each other. And sometimes he doesn't like it if I bring in some of the things that we've worked on in a different room, and so I don't. But this was really nice because the kids came over and wanted to do the activity with him, and then he was much more engaged when when his friends were there. So it was really sweet.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And I will say, my son, he's felt the same way, that He wanted to be a people pleaser. He wanted to do the right thing, and he struggled a lot when he got home because he felt like he let everybody down. So just remember when you guys speak to him, it's not his fault. Like if he really truly has ADHD, he's probably beating himself internally up every day for not
Yeah.
being able to do what he needs to do.
Does anybody have any tips around that about addressing, kind of like helping to build his self-esteem? Because I think the home life is hard also. So we have some good opportunities at school.
One of the things that we do here is like previewing. We'll have like, I'm not sure if you do advisory or like a morning meeting, but maybe he'll have a preferred adult and he could do breakfast with the preferred adult and they could kind of preview like that first block of the day. Like, this is where you're about to learn, like the big vocabulary. So he already knows those answers, like he kind of got pre-taught. So then when he is in class, he has the answers and he feels confident about having the answers because he's right. And then he's positively praised in front of his friends. And then it really builds up that confidence to
I
answer.
love That's fantastic. Great. And you called it like pre-planning with the preferred with the
Yeah.
preferred adult.
Yep, previewing with the preferred adult. Because then it's fun. It's somebody that you like. We're having breakfast. And I'm learning the thing ahead of the class. Sometimes teachers might say, like, now the student knows, so you can be my student teacher. And so now you're helping me teach the class. And that gives, kids a little ego boost too.
Yeah.
The
That's
other
great.
thing too is having, like, I think Ariel mentioned this also, like having classroom, like a job or a responsibility in the classroom. Not only does that like boost confidence and help them feel like a real member of that community, but it also can be used as like a sensory diet kind of thing. It's like lifting heavy books or, like erasing the whiteboard. It's like a really good way to keep the student engaged in the classroom, build confidence, and also kind of like manage some of that hyperactivity too.
That has worked really, really well for him. Like you could just see, so we had him pushing a large bookshelf and with the teacher and he just brightened up and he didn't want to stop. He was really following through with the whole thing. He was fully 100% engaged.
Well, we're running out of time. That was a really, really good case. So thank you so much for bringing it up. I think it's wonderful that you're catching this student early, and helping support him early so that he's gonna hopefully do really well as he gets older and progresses. I want to make sure we have time because there's 2 surveys. This one, we're going to put the link in the chat. I really want you to take some time to fill it out now so that we can have that immediate feedback for the next session next week. So thank you everyone for being here. In the chat, there is the link in there? Yes, there's the link to the survey. Click on it, fill it out now, give us feedback for what went well, what you think could be different for the next time we all meet. And we'll make those adjustments to help you all get the most out of these sessions. So I'm going to give you it's like a 3-minute survey, Ariel. About 3 minutes to fill it out, and then we can move on with the closing housekeeping stuff. So next week, we're going to be talking about autism. So love for people to join for that. Thank you all for being here today. If you missed the beginning of the session, we want to remind you again to be on the lookout for the follow-up email that you'll receive after the session. In this email, you will receive your certificate of completion, a link to the recording of the webinar, and a copy of the slide deck presentation that was shown. We need to hear back from you about, in order to keep bringing you these free resources. Your completion of the survey is a very important part of our quality control and our future funding for this project. It allows us to continue to provide you with resources and training at no cost. In addition, it allows us continually to improve our services and provide the information and resources you're needing in the field. So there's another survey too that we'll ask that you complete for NTAC. And then stay connected with us. We have a website, we have a lot of upcoming events and toolkits and products. You can follow us on social media, and we'd love to have you involved in our programming. Here's some contact info. And I think that's it for today. But really, really thank you, especially to Kirsten for sharing that case. Thank you so much for being brave and sharing. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Hope to see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.